This tutorial covers how to add a supplier to Channergy. From the main menu under Inventory, click Suppliers. You can also get to the suppliers from the product screen. So at the top, you'll have options here like we have new product on Supplier. You'll have add a supplier from the products. But we're going to go straight into the supplier. When you open it, you'll see your current supplier. If you don't have any, it'll be blank. Regardless, click New. When you click New, it clears the fields and prepares for a new supplier to be entered. And you can type the name of the supplier, put in the address. All these fields are self-explanatory. If you have an account number with the vendor, you can put it here. If there's a vendor code that you have with them, you can put it there. Anything that doesn't have a field, there's a whole notes field that you can use and add information to. It will automatically assign a supplier number, and that can be useful for multiple things like reports, etc. You don't have to use the supplier number. You can use the name, but it's a nice shortcut when you're doing filters on reports. If you have a buyer set up inside of your operator IDs, you can select it like I did here. So, if I wanted to choose Joe Friendly to be the buyer, there I would. And of course, any of your default terms with your vendor, costs, etc. If you remember from the product tutorial, and you can go back and check that out at the supplier tab on the product screen, you can put things like discounts that you get, minimum quantities you need to meet, etc. Some of that can be stored here as well. And if you look at our purchase orders tutorial, you'll see how some of that can be useful when creating POs. So we'll visit that as well. And finally, if your vendor ships with one of your accounts, UPS, FedEx, etc., you can put in that information like your UPS account and whatever that account number might be. All the products and the purchase orders you have with the vendor can optionally show up here. You set this in preferences, but if it's on, you can see all their products and all their POs. I just created this vendor, so there are none, but if I go to an existing vendor, let's see, do I have one? I do. Then under the products, you'll see all the products that you have associated with that vendor. You can edit them and add them right from here. Same with purchase orders. So if you wanted to create a PO, you can. And again, visit the PO tutorial to see how that's done. And that's the way to add a supplier. Very easy. Let's pop into inventory very quickly so I can show you what that would look like at the inventory level. You have a couple of places to put a supplier. You can put a main supplier here if you want. So notice now our new supplier is listed. You can also have multiple suppliers for a product, and that's where that information is stored. You can add, click the insert record, or just start typing, and put in things like their product number, unit of measure, etc. So that's just a quick little introduction to that and how that works. Again, I mentioned from setup you could create a supplier when you're on the product screen, so that's where that is. One more tip on suppliers. At the product level, under Stock Levels tab, we have a locations feature, and within there you can have different physical locations like warehouses and bin numbers, etc. You can also have suppliers. These are typically drop ship suppliers or just-in-time suppliers, people you order from as soon as you get an order. And you can add them from the setup menu. So we'll drop out of this, go to setup, and under locations, if I wanted to create the new supplier I just created, type it exactly the way that you created it. So I called it supplier. You can give it a preference. You don't have to, but it's recommended. And close that. And now under locations, you have the ability to add that supplier. So drop a line or click the add button. Choose that new supplier. Indicate the quantity they have in stock, whether you want to pull from them first, second, third, etc. Thus the preference. If they're a drop shipper, you can mark them as drop ship, and you may want to do that for just-in-time vendors as well. This number that we put in, it's just a number I keyed, but if you have a feed coming from a vendor, you can have that load in every day, hour, however often you receive it. It could be a file they email you. It could be an FTP site that you pull. We have a utility you can use for that. And then when you sell, in this case, 15 would come from warehouse 1. And then this would just endlessly start coming from the next provider because they're marked non-inventory, which means they have an endless supply. But if that were unchecked, they'd be skipped because they have 0 in stock. And then the next 15 would come from supplier. So that's how you add a drop shipper or a supplier to a product and pull inventory from it from the order level automatically.